Bonjour, welcome to Wahsa Distance Education Center's radio Zoom classes. This is MEL3E, grade 11 workplace math, and I am Bronwyn Slate. If you'd like to participate live, you can call the Wahsa studio at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. You can listen on the radio at 91.9 FM or on the television at Bell Express channel 972. You're always welcome to join me live through the Zoom link, which is available from me, your teacher, and also your DEC. Our classes are scheduled Monday through Thursday from 9 till 10 in the morning, and we are in our 6th week of our 9-week course. At this point, I'm really hopeful that you have submitted something for marking and have more ready to go soon. But reminder that the support questions are not for marking. They're the ones with the pencil icon, and they're practice problems. So you decide which ones and how many to do. If you understand a concept, feel free to skip questions. If you just want to do them in your head and not write them down, that's fine too, if that's what works for you. But also, if you do need more practice, please feel free to ask and I can send you more practice problems. But the key questions, the ones with the little key icon, are the ones to submit for marking. So please do all of these questions, showing all of your work, your steps, and your thinking. This way I get a full understanding of what you understand. And if you're making errors, it gives me information about how I can help you to correct those for the future. All right, so there are 3 methods for submitting your work for marking. The first method is to scan and send your work in electronically. So if you have a smartphone or device, you can scan your completed works either through the iPhone Notes app or the Android Google Drive app. If scanning doesn't work for you, then you can also take pictures and send those to me as well. That's fine. Scanning just are smaller function files, so a little bit easier to send. Then you can send them to me through email to either studentwork@nnec.on.ca and CC it to bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca, or you can also send it to me through Facebook Messenger at bslatewahsa. The second method is to drop your work off in Sioux Lookout. We have an outdoor mailbox at our location, 74 Front Street. We are the bright red building next to the post office, and we have a small white mailbox next to our side entrance. So you can just put it there at any time. The third method is to hand your work into your DEC. Your DEC can either send your work through the Express or fax it to 807-737-1732 or toll-free fax to 1-800-463-7852. If you'd like to connect with me through social media, both my Facebook and my YouTube channel are under the name bslatewahsa. So you can friend me on Facebook and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you'd like. And then you'll get notifications every time that I upload one of our videos, which I do generally shortly after airing within 24 hours or so. Every class is posted on YouTube, and there also are short videos explaining common errors or confusing concepts that might be a good place to go if you're struggling with something. Check out there first before just doing a random internet search and hoping to find something that meets your needs. If there's anything you'd like me to add, I'm happy to make new videos as we go. I do add them as I come across an issue that I think students are having. So feel free to ask if there's something you want me to make a video for. Math is an incredibly visual subject, so I strongly encourage you to access the videos. Either joining me live on Zoom, even if you don't want to ask questions, but just watching, that's totally fine, or watching the replays on YouTube. However, if you can't access either of those options, let me know, and I can send you a recording of the videos so that you still have access to the full experience and set yourself up for success. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to me. My email address is bronwyn.slate, which is spelled BRONWYN.SLATE@nnec.on.ca. My Facebook is bslatewahsa. And my phone number is 807-737-1488, extension 2209. Or you can call toll free 1-800-667-3703. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. till 4 p.m., though I teach the first hour and the last hour of the day. So you wouldn't be able to get a hold of me in those moments. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can if we miss each other. All right, today is lesson number 13 in your IEL booklet. We are looking at driver's licenses and also insurance. So our learning goals are that at the end of this lesson, you understand the procedures in Ontario's graduating license system. You will be able to calculate the costs of speeding tickets, including demerit points, and you will understand the costs, privileges, and restrictions in obtaining an Ontario driver's license. So you know you've met your learning goals because you can explain the steps involved in getting a full license in Ontario. You can calculate demerit points, fees, and surcharges for various traffic violations. And you can explain why insurance is necessary and how rates can be increased or lowered. All right, but let's first activate our brain and do some mental math to get going. So I don't believe that memorizing facts is necessarily the best strategy for all students. Memorizing facts can work really well for some folks, and that can click and make sense for them, but for many folks that is not helpful. So instead of focusing on mad minutes and drilling and killing facts, we work on developing strategies that we can use in various situations that hopefully make sense, and so that you can apply them to new situations and you can feel comfortable using them, opposed to just having to memorize them. So our question today is 24 times 9, and we're going to use a strategy of breaking factors into smaller factors. So what this means is taking our numbers. So these are both factors. When we're multiplying two numbers together, they're factors. And so if we're going to break our numbers up into smaller factors, we're going to break them up into numbers that they can be multiplied, what numbers multiply to them. So we can do this in a whole bunch of different ways. We have 24 times 9, and that is not a fact that I know off the top of my head. But we can think about it like, if I say that I know that 9 is 3 times 3, and 24 I can think of is 2 times 12. So I can break these up into smaller factors, which means that I can then rearrange them because I'm multiplying them all. So that means that I can multiply any ones that I want. So I can multiply, say if I know what 12 times 3 is, that is 36. And then from there, maybe I can figure out that 2 times 36 is 72. And then maybe I can figure out that 72 times 3 is, well, 2 times 3 is 6, and 7 times 3 is 21. So 7 times 3 is going to be 210. So 72 times 3 is 216. So that could be one way that you could do it. But really, we could do it in any other sort of way. We could also say, okay, well, 24, maybe we can just say, well, 24 times, and just do 24 times 3 times 3. And say, okay, well, 24 times 3 is really close to 25 times 3. And 25 times 3 is 72. Sorry, 25 times 3 is 75, like quarters. And then taking away 3 is 72. And then now I get back to 72 times 3, which is equal to 216. So really, there are a whole bunch of different ways that you could choose to break these numbers up. You don't have to do it in either two ways that I did it, but sometimes breaking up numbers into smaller numbers by multiplying, so breaking them up into smaller factors, so smaller groups that are multiplying, means that you can rearrange them so that they are more accessible to what makes sense to you. All right, Mine's on, let's engage in some prior learning, or what is some information that we kind of just need to know. So for this, there isn't necessarily a lot of math prior learning that we haven't covered already to understand, but I thought it would be good to just sort of go over some Ontario driving statistics to understand why it's really important to follow through with all of the steps to get licensed properly in order to be a safe driver, and also why insurance is really important. So I thought we'd look at some accident statistics to just sort of see what happens. So first, and these numbers are a little bit old, but they're what I was able to find. So texting and driving accidents. So generally texting increases crash risk by 23 times. So that's fairly significant. In Ontario, deaths from collisions caused by distracted driving has doubled since 2000. One person is injured in driving collision every half hour. So that's a lot of people, not necessarily fatalities, not necessarily deaths, but a lot of injured people due to people texting or talking on their phones. It just mind boggles me. It just seems like such a simple thing. If you're driving, you can't text. It's that simple. If you need to text, pull over, stop safely, and then look at your phone. Otherwise, deal with it later. Anyway, so then some statistics that I was able to find from 2017 in terms of fatalities in Ontario. So there were, in that year, 2017, there were 617 traffic fatalities on Ontario roads. So 617 people died due to driving accidents. 114 were pedestrians who were killed in traffic accidents. 175 motorcyclists were killed in crashes. And 133 people were killed in collisions involving a drunk driver. So that just seems like a lot of things that we probably could avoid, I really think. So here is a graph that shows collisions by age of drunk vehicle operators. So you can see in this chart that there were, on average, there between 25 and 34 is the highest age of folks who think that they can drive when they're intoxicated. Almost 600 people are drivers. So that's pretty significant. And then that gets almost cuts in half, not quite, but almost cuts in half in terms of 21 to 24 or 35 to 44. So if you're hanging out with folks in that age group, really be cautious. And if you are someone in that age group, really be cautious and considerate about your choices and the impacts that has on other folks. Anyway, that's just sort of a little bit of a spiel of the realities of driving in Ontario. So let's explore some new concepts. So when will you use this in real life? Well, beyond just having your license and driving, which many of us need to, especially living in remote areas, is that we're learning to be informed members of our communities. So we're learning how to understand the whole picture and not just the process that maybe we had to go through in terms of getting our own licenses, but just what the steps are currently and the safety regulations so that we can support other folks in our lives and just know how things are working within our communities. So this is on page 18 of your IL booklet. Sorry, I'm having some issues with my animations. For some reason, they don't want to do what I want. Anyway, so as of April 1st, 1994, so almost 30 years ago, all new drivers applying for their first car or motorcycle license entered the Ontario's graduated licensing system, the GLC. Graduated licensing lets new drivers get driving experience and skills gradually. So before that, you just would get your learner's permit for a year. They call it your 365. And after a year, you could take your test and then you were good to go. And I guess that they realized that this was maybe not enough time for many folks to become safe drivers. So now the two-step licensing process takes at least 20 months to complete, but you have a total of 5 years to do the whole thing if you need it. So the first level is your class G1, and a new driver must hold a G1 license for a minimum of 12 months before attempting the G1 road test. 12 months, the year can be reduced to 8 months if you successfully complete an approved driver education course. So if you take driver's ed and you finish it, then you're able to do your driver's test in 8 months, your G1 test in 8 months. The second level is a class 2 G2, and then all new drivers must hold a G2 license for a minimum of 12 months before you can attempt your G2 road test. So that's why you can take it. So you can have your G1 for 8 months and then have your G2 for a year, and then you can take your final test and become a fully licensed driver. It has a total of 20 months, though you can take longer, up to 5 years at either. So you can have your class G1 for a couple of years and then have your class G2 for a couple of years, and still, as long as it's within 5 years, you can still get your license. If that time expires, you might just need to retake a test, and that you don't necessarily go back to 0 in terms of your timeline. Just so you know, you can look into that if your G2 has expired and you haven't got your full G license yet. All right, so let's understand your class G1 a little bit. So as a G1 driver, you are required to maintain a blood alcohol level of 0 when you're driving. You cannot have any alcohol in your system when you are a G1 driver and driving. You must be accompanied by a fully licensed driver for at least 4 years. That driver has to have. So you can't just be someone who just has become a fully licensed driver. They need to have been a fully licensed driver for at least 4 years. And that shows up on their license. There's a little red line with dots underneath your license that indicates that that is true. You must ensure that the number of passengers in your vehicle is limited to the number of working seatbelts. Everyone must be in a working seatbelt. So you cannot stuff your car full with a bunch of people if you don't have a bunch of seatbelts. You must refrain from driving between midnight and 5 a.m. Can't drive in the middle of the night. And you must refrain from driving on Ontario's 400 series highways or on high-speed expressways. Generally, they have speed limits of 90+ kilometers an hour, and they have multiple lanes. So there's various different examples. Those are not so much in our area. They're more in Southern Ontario. This is canceled if you're accompanied by a licensed driving instructor, because you can drive with them on those bigger highways in order to practice and learn, but only if they're a licensed driving instructor. Okay, class G2. What is involved in this? This is on page 19 of your outlook. So you're required to, again, maintain a 0 blood alcohol level while driving. And you must still ensure the number of passengers in your vehicle is limited to the number of working seatbelts. But those are the only two restrictions. So you may drive without an accompanied driver on all Ontario roads at any time. So you don't have to have someone with you. You can drive in the middle of the night and you can go on bigger highways. All right, so in terms of the steps to get your fully G license, that's what it's called, which is the first license that you need to obtain to qualify for any other vehicle. If you want to drive other vehicles, you have to have your G license first. I don't know if that applies to motorcycles. I think motorcycles, your M license, you might be able to get at the same time as your G license or before you have your G license. Anyway, you must be at least 16 years old. You must meet a vision standard test. So you have to take an eye test. You must pass a knowledge test regarding rules of the roads and signs. And you must pass 2 road test classes that are called your G2 test and your G test, road test, to become fully licensed. So you have to have 2 practice driving tests. So how you actually obtain your license, all the steps, if you're looking at them, is that you first, to get it, you need to study for the written knowledge test, apply for a license at a driving test center, take a vision test at the driving test center, pay the fees at the driving test center, complete and pass the written knowledge test, obtain your temporary driver's license, then practice with your driving with your class G1 license and a fully licensed accompanied driver. After 8 to 12 months with a class G1 license, you book your road test and then you take your class G2 road test. Then practice driving with your class G2 license, book your road test, and then take your class G road test after a year. and then you have your license. Those are all the steps that you need to take. So then a few other things to know is that the vision test takes a few minutes. If you have corrective glasses, bring them. So if you wear glasses or you wear contacts, bring them so that they can decide if you need to be wearing glasses or not. There are fees that you need to pay, and they can be paid by cash or credit card or debit card. Also certifies business checks, personal checks, bank draft or money order, or traveler checks. Good to know. You get a temporary driver's license that's made for and is valid for 90 days, and then you'll be mailed your plastic driver's license card. The knowledge test takes approximately 30 minutes to take. Generally, there's no appointment required. You just need to show up to where they are, and then they can do it. I think most places they're done on a computer now. I did mine on a piece of paper, but I think that they're done on computers now. And then just a reminder, when you have your class 1 license, you must have 0 blood alcohol level, not drive on 400 series or high-speed expressways. Make sure every passenger with you wears a seatbelt. Drive with a fully licensed driver with 4 years of experience, and their blood alcohol level has to be less than 0.05%. Not drive between midnight and 5 a.m. And if you as the class G1 driver is 21 years or under, your blood alcohols must be 0. What did it say? Oh no, this is sorry. I'm like, what? No, if the person who is your licensed driver has to have a blood alcohol level must be 0 if they're 21 years or younger. There's also rules in terms of the number, if you were younger, and the number of passengers who can also be young in your vehicle at the same time, just in terms of not wanting to have, there have been lots of accidents where lots of teenagers in a car and where many of the teenagers died. So they try not to have, they don't want to have them all packed together. Hi, kiddo. You got to go back to watching your show. Sorry, I have a sick kid with me today. All right. So then the last thing is that if you're unsuccessful, you can try the road test again if it's still in that time frame. Within your 5 years. Okay. So next, here are the fees that are associated with getting your license. So when you start, very first, if you're brand new to apply, it's a fee of $159.75. This is your G1 package. And this includes the cost of your knowledge test, your G2 road test, and your 5-year license. So you pay for that right when you are applying to do your test. If you need to do more tests, if you fail your first written test, it's $16 per extra attempt. If you just need to pay for your road test, you can pay, that's $53.75. And then if you just want to pay for the 5-year license, that's $90. Then to do your road test, to your final road test, your class G, that's $91.25. And then there's a couple other things depending on what your situation is. But those are basically the key thing is that if you're going to go in to get your G1, it's almost $160 basically. And if you then to do your G2 road test to get your G road test to get your G license, that's another $91.25. Okay, so that's how you get your license, all the hoops to jump through to make you a nice, safe driver. But then if you are doing traffic violations, or if you're making choices that are not safe, then there's ways to discourage you to do that. So the first are demerit points. And this is on page 19 of your IL book. So one way that the Ontario Ministry of Transportation monitors your driving is through demerit points. And so all individuals who drive a vehicle in Ontario are subject to this system only when they are convicted of an offense under the Highway Traffic Act. So demerit points are added. They're not lost. You don't start with any, you start with 0. If you are found guilty of a traffic ticket offense, the amount of points you gain vary depending on your charge. If you obtain too many demerit points, there's a possibility that you could lose your license. It could be suspended, or you could just lose it in general. So you start with 0 points and you can go up to 15. A demerit point will stay on your record for a maximum of 2 years from the offense date. Once 2 years has passed, they will automatically be removed from your record. So it's not a lifelong thing. They give you a chance to make mistakes, things happen, and then they can go away. Don't assume that if the demerit point is not written on your ticket, that there are no points associated with the charge. They're separate things that are being regulated. So you still need to look into it. Okay, so how are they applied? So for G1 or G2 drivers, 2 to 5 demerit points. If you have that many, we'll talk about how you get them, but you're sent a warning letter and you're likely to have to attend an interview hearing where they talk about the safety and the choices that you're making because you're a new driver. If you have 6 to 8 demerit points, your license could be suspended. So you could have a 30-day license suspension, which you're convicted of 4 or more demerit point traffic tickets, or you're convicted of the graduating license requirement. So that means that you're not doing one of those things. You're driving in the middle of the night, you're driving on a 400 series. As a G1 driver, you have alcohol in your system. You can also get a 60-day license suspension if you have received 9 or more demerit points. Right, so then if you are a G-class driver, so if you're a fully licensed driver, 2 to 8 demerit points, then you are sent a warning letter. 9 to 14 demerit points, your license could be suspended, and you may have to attend an interview to discuss your record. And 15 or more demerit points, you are given a 30-day license suspension. So here are how some of the ways that you can earn demerit points. So these are the highest ones. So if you fail to remain at the scene of a collision, that is 7 demerit points all at once. If you fail to stop when signaled or asked by a police officer, that is also 7 demerit points. If you are convicted of careless driving, stunt driving, failing to stop for a school bus, or speeding, exceeding the speed limit by 50 kilometers an hour or more, those are all 6 demerit points. If you are exceeding the speed limit by 30 to 49 kilometers an hour, that is 4. Or if you're following too closely, that is also 4 demerit points. Then they get less. So all of these are 3 demerit points. I'm not going to read all of them because it's a long list. But again, speeding between 16 to 29 kilometers an hour over the speed limit, driving while holding or using a handheld wireless communication device, driving the wrong way on a divided highway, failing to obey a stop sign or yield the right of way, failing to obey the directions of a police officer, improper passing, going the wrong way on a one-way road, crowding the driver's seat, and various other things are all 3 points. And then this list is all 2 points. So doing an improper right or left turn, improper opening of a vehicle door, doing prohibited turns, towing persons on a toboggan, bicycles, or skis, unnecessarily slow driving. If you're driving too slow, you might get 2 demerit points if there's no, if it doesn't make sense that you should be driving that at that speed. Backing up on the highway, failing to obey signs, failing to signal. Nobody signals anyway. Failing to wear seatbelts, failing to ensure infant child passenger is properly secured. So these are various things that you get 2 demerit points for. All right, so then beyond demerit points, you also can get fines. So, or other suspensions. So for speeding tickets, if you are speeding, so 0 to 15 kilometers an hour over the speed limit, you don't get any demerit points, but you might get a ticket, you might get a fine. 16 to 29 kilometers an hour, you get 3 demerit points. 30 to 49 kilometers an hour, this is all over the speed limit. You get 4 demerit points plus a 30-day suspension if you're a G1 or G2 driver. 50 kilometers over the speed limit, you get 6 demerit points plus a 30-day suspension if you are a G1 or G2 driver. And then if you're doing stunt driving or racing, that is 6 demerit points, a 7-day license suspension, as well as a 7-day vehicle impound, a minimum fine of $2,000, a maximum fine of $10,000, maximum 2-year license suspension, and maximum 6-month jail time, depending on the situation. So don't do that. That's not safe. That's why it's has a hefty penalty on it. So the penalties for speeding, the fines. So the demerit points is one part, but then there's also a fine. So if you are 1 to 19 kilometers an hour over the limit, it is $2.50 per kilometer. So if you're only 1 kilometer over an hour and they decide to charge you for some reason, which I highly doubt they ever would, but this is the rules, you would pay $2.50. If you are 10 kilometers over the speed limit, you would pay 10 times $2.50. So you'd pay $25. But then if you are speeding more, so if you're 20 to 34 kilometers an hour over the speed limit, then you pay $3.75 per kilometer per hour over the speed limit. If it's 35 to 49 kilometers an hour over the speed limit, then you pay $6 per kilometer per hour over the speed limit. And if it's 50 plus kilometers an hour over the speed limit, the minimum fine is $7,000 and they might seize your vehicle. So that's just regular spaces. If you are speeding in a community safety zone, so where they have this sign, so it means that there's maybe schools, parks, neighborhoods, residential neighborhoods, areas where there are people and children, then the fines are higher. So now 1 to 19 kilometers an hour over the speed limit is now $5 per kilometer hour, so it's doubled. And 20 to 34 is also doubled to $7.50. And then for 35 to 49 kilometers an hour, there's no out of court settlement. You have to go to court and they decide. And there's nothing listed for 50 plus. So I don't understand why they don't just say 35 and over. But when I was looking it up, this is how it is written. So it was confusing. But anyway, generally, I would assume higher than 35 kilometers an hour that you're speeding in a community safety zone, you have to go to court. It's not like once you hit 50, then you're good to go. That's not how it works. Okay, then finally, there's a victim fine surcharge. So this is an extra fine that a judge can order as part of your sentence. So you may have to pay the VFS even if you pay another fine, or it could be part of your sentence. It doesn't matter if you've been convicted or an absolute discharge or conditional discharge on your sentence, you may still have to pay a VFS. If a judge orders you to pay the VFS, you're given a form that's called the notice of fine or due dates of your sentencing. This form says the amount of the VFS, depending on the situation, how you can pay it, when you have to pay it by, and how you can ask for more time to pay it. So the rules have changed about who pays it. It depends on the date. So of which your crime was and when you were sentenced, that's all changed recently. So that's something to look up. Also, if you are experiencing poverty, if you're Indigenous, there are a couple other things of why you might not have to pay it, just in terms of to manage the oppression that you are likely already experiencing. So this is the victim fine surcharge pay list. So depending on how big your fine is, this is going to be added to your charge. Every speeding fine has a surcharge added on top of it. So you need to figure out what your fine is, and then you need to add your surcharge as well as your demerit points. So there's various things for speeding. So don't speed, not a good idea. Okay, so let's see let's actually calculate this, do a practice problem so that we can see how this actually works. So calculate the cost of speeding fines and the number of demerit points when speeding 42 kilometers an hour over the speed limit. So I'm pretty sure 42 kilometers an hour was 4 demerit points. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's 4 demerit points. There's my pen. There it is. 4 demerit points. So if we're over 42 kilometers an hour, that means that we are in this section. So it's $6 per kilometer an hour over the speed limit. So 42 times 6, well, 40 times 6 is 240. 6 times 2 is 12. So 240 plus 12 is $252. And then we need to think about, so that is just the speeding. Then we need to think about the victim fine surcharge. So if we were paying $242, $52, that is in this 251 to 300. So that's a surcharge of $60. So that means that we need to add the surcharge. So 252 plus 60 is equal to $312. So it's $312 and 4 demerit points if you're speeding 42 kilometers an hour over the speed limit. However, if you are in a community safety zone and you're speeding 25 kilometers an hour, what is that going to be? So speeding 25 kilometers an hour, I think that was 3 demerit points. You can look it up. You don't have to, don't guess like me, look it up. And 25 kilometers an hour follows in this section, which is now $7.50. So how I would do this is 25 times 7 plus 25 times 50 cents. So 25 times 7, well, 25 times 8 would be 200. So 25 times 7 is going to be 175 plus 25 times 50. So saying half of 25, which is $12.50. So that is equal to $187.50 plus the victim service fee surcharge. So we need to go back. So that was, brain, 187.50. So here, 187.50 is going to be in this zone. So another $35 is added. So then surcharge added equals 187.50 plus 35, which is equal to, well, to me, I look and I say, well, 80 plus 30 is going to be over 100. So that's going to be 210. But so it's going to be over, so it's going to be 200. 5 plus 7 is 12. So that's going to be 222.50 is what, plus 3 demerit points if you are speeding by 25 kilometers in a community safety zone. All right, so now you can use support questions on page 23 to 24, questions 1 to 4. Now let's talk about insuring a car. So this is on page 24 of your IL book. So having a driver's license is only one step on the way to owning and operating a vehicle. It has many risks, and best drivers can even get in accidents. So you can't guarantee that you're not going to get an accident, which is why you need insurance. So by law, the owner of a car is required to insure your car. In Ontario, this is mandatory. Failure to have insurance can result in a large fine and going to court. Every insurance policy must include the following: third-party liability coverage. So this is in case someone else is killed or injured or their property is damaged as a result of a car accident that you are in. Statutory accident benefit coverage. So this is if you are injured, even if it's only your own fault, if you're injured, this covers you. Direct compensation and property damage coverage. So any damage to your vehicle or the possessions inside of it, if you were in an accident and someone else was at fault. And uninsured automobile coverage. So it's for you and your family if you are injured or killed by a vehicle that is uninsured or flees the scene of a crime before their identity can be determined. So that covers you in case the other person is not being responsible. Okay, so what does it cost? So the cost is calculated depending on your driving experience. So the longer you've been driving, the more, the better you probably is, the lower your rate is going to be, as long as you're in Canada, it counts. Your driving history, so how many accidents and speeding tickets you have, the less you have, the better your rate's going to be. Your age, the older you are, the lower your rate is in general. Your gender, Typically, women get lower rates than men. We're not going to go into that today. Location, there are more accidents in crowded cities like Toronto than in smaller towns. So if you live in a crowded city, your rate's going to be higher than if you live in a small town. The vehicle, cars are cheaper and have higher safety ratings. They do not cost as much in insurance. Your vehicle usage, the more you drive, the higher chances of an accident, so your rates will be higher. Winter tires. A new Ontario law allows for drivers to get an insurance discount when you're using winter tires during the snowy season. That's really good to know in terms of where we live, because most of us, I'm sure everyone puts winter tires on, so that's good to let your insurance company know. So Ontario has the highest average insurance rates in Canada out of any other province. So this is because Ontario mandates a better standard of coverage and accident benefit laws. So the extra cost at least has extra benefits as well. So when will your insurance rates be reduced? So if you get a higher driver license level or you complete a driver's course, your insurances will be reduced. This is if you don't have a full G license. As you get older and you have a clean driving record, your rates will be reduced. If you change your policy's deductible level or you change to a cheaper coverage, if you move to a safer area where more secure parking or out of a bigger city to a smaller town, if you have old accidents or tickets falling off your record, they're only on for so long. If you shop around for another company that offers cheaper rates, that can work. So just good to know that the fine for being caught driving without a valid car insurance policy range between $5,000 to $50,000. And you can also have your license suspended or your car impounded. If you cause a car accident without proper insurance, that means you have to pay the legal and medical costs yourself. I know that right now insurance rates are high, gas prices are high, so folks are letting their insurance lapse and not renewing it. That is incredibly dangerous and setting yourself up for potential for really big fines and financial costs. So really, really consider if you're choosing to do that. Okay, so in terms of some calculations, so if you have a family car, has a car insurance premium of $1,920 a year, adding a new driver will cost about 45% more. How is the total cost of insuring the vehicle now? So how we figure this out is that already it costs $1,920, and we need to add on an extra 45%. So we're going to times it by 45%. So 0.45. We're going to do this on our calculator. 1920 times 0.45 is equal to 864. 864. So that means that the total now is 1920 plus 864. So that's going to be $27,844. Sorry, $2,784 is how much it's going to cost to insure that vehicle now with a new driver. Okay, so now you can do the support questions on page 25, question number 5. All right, let's consolidate what we have learned today. So we've been doing lesson 13, which is about driver's licenses and insurance. So we talked about the graduated licensing system where you get your G1 for 8 to 12 months and you have lots of restrictions in terms of not being able to have any alcohol in your system, not driving in the middle of the night, not driving on big, fast highways, and having a fully licensed driver in the front seat with you, and having everyone in the car in a proper seatbelt by themselves, no doubling up. Then after you do that and you pass a road test, then you get your G2, which means now your only restrictions are that you can't have any alcohol in your system and everyone in the vehicle needs to be in a proper functioning seatbelt. Then you have that for a year. After that, you can do your final road test, and then if you pass that, you are a fully licensed driver. Just so you know, lots of people fail their tests. Lots of people fail the road test. It is super normal. It is okay. You can do it. Practice some more, get some more instruction, and then don't stress so much if you fail. You just need more practice. Then we talk about demerit points and that they are added to your record if you're found guilty of a traffic ticket offense, and they go up to 15 points. They vary per charge, where we listed the various charges, right? And they could have a possible license suspension. And then in addition to demerit points, there also are speeding tickets. And so focusing specifically on speeding, that there are various fees and surcharges depending on how fast you're going over the speed limit and if you are in a community safety zone. And then finally, we talk about car insurance and how premiums raise and lower depending on your situation, and that they are mandatory, that you need to have car insurance if you own a vehicle in order to protect yourself really of financial struggles in the future. So we have covered, hopefully now you are comfortable with success criteria 1, that you can explain the steps involved in getting a fully licensed in Ontario. 2, that you can calculate points, demerit points, fees, and surcharges for various traffic violations. And 3, you can explain why insurance is necessary and how rates can be increased or lowered. Right, and that is covering lesson 13. So we are halfway through our unit 3, and which means that we are getting closer and closer to the end, which is great. We only have just over 3 more weeks of our course. And remember, all of your coursework is due by June 10th. So right up until the end of our class, we will be, how I work it is that last week leading up to June 10th, we will be doing a review. So we will have covered all of our class material by the end of week 8. So then you still have a week to complete your work and we've taught all of your course material. So you still have time before the due date of June 10th, that it's not like I teach you something on June 9th and then you have to have it handed in by June 10th. No, you'll have a week between the last day that I teach new material and then we will review. Hello, little one. I'm almost finished, sweetie. Anyway, sorry for that. Yeah, in a minute. If you'd like to call me, if you have any questions or concerns, please reach out. My number is 807-737-1488, extension 2209. You can also call toll free at 1-800-667-3703. You can email me at bronwyn.slate, which when I'm working from home, because I have a sick kiddo, is an easier way to get a hold of me. That's spelled BRONWYN.SLATE@nnec.on.ca. You can also connect with me on Facebook through B-Slate Wahsa, which also I can access when I'm not in the office because I'm home with a sick kiddo. Our lessons are uploaded on YouTube at B-Slate Wahsa. Remember, all of our classes are under a playlist, MEL3E, our course code, so you can find it there. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And thanks so much for joining me. I hope you have a lovely day. Miigwech.